And so they kiss, and their Facebook official. Oh,
Facebook
R.I.P.
official.
R.I.P. to me for making that reference. And
It's
they,
RIP if you even say MySpace.
yeah, right. Hello, Fantasy. Welcome back to Sherwood Forest, where I am live once again. I'm Cullen, hosting Not My Fantasy Podcast, the show where we talk about fantasy films and the lore behind them. Hannah is still in custody of the Sheriff of Nottingham, and we're podcasting for her life to get her back. So please listen, and support the pod so we can free Hannah from Nottingham. And today, from a beautiful old theater, I'm joined by one of the hosts of that classic old gay cinema, Chris.
Hi, everyone. Yes, I host that OK Classic Cinema, a podcast that reviews classic films, but we view them through a queer theoretical lens. Um, yeah. So I'm
Yeah.
so happy to be on this podcast, Colin. Thank you and Hannah again so much for having me on. I cannot wait to talk about this film with you guys.
Thank you for joining us. Definitely check out his podcast. I listened to a great episode on Bringing Up Baby, which is a great film, and learned that maybe that's where the first time the word gay was used in its modern context. Question
Yeah.
mark. So you'll get a lot of great history like that. So definitely check out his pod. But here today, we're talking about one of my favorite films, The Adventures of Robin Hood from 1938, a classic Technicolor extravaganza, if you will, starring Errol Flynn. This is a movie I saw a few times as a kid, and I remember liking it. I was a big Robin Hood kid. I had
Hmm.
these they were like army men, but they were Robin Hood characters. I'd play with them in the sandbox. Because even though I didn't like the Disney movie, I liked it. I was like, okay, but I really liked those toys. And I remember seeing this movie, probably on Turner Classic Movies, and
Oh
liking
my
it.
gosh.
And I did a report on in grad school on report, I don't know what it was called, but like on like medieval film aesthetics in like old Hollywood. And I did this movie, Knights of the Round Table from 53, and then Sleeping Beauty, and talked about like Technicolor medieval, like the
Oh
opposite
my
of medieval
gosh.
grunge that we'd get in like the
Hmm.
2010s, like this very colorful, which seemed much more in line with medieval art, like colorful, like lots of detail. Um, and so I've always loved this movie for its aesthetics and for being like the blueprint of Robin Hood. Uh, but Chris, was this your first time watching this movie, or had you had prior
It
experience?
was. And I honestly want to watch it again and again. I loved the aesthetics, it was for me watching this film was just so wholesome.
Yeah,
And no, when you're with the Merry Band of Robin Hood, it's no one is one up on each other. They're all equal in each other's eyes, which
yeah.
I found so comforting. And I was like, whoa, that's new and amazing, and I want to see more of that. So,
Yeah, yeah. This movie has, it's a classic film, but it's held up surprisingly well. Um, and so it's definitely like I own this on DVD actually. I don't have a DVD player, so I watched it on Tubi, but I have a
come
DVD.
on, Colin, get on that. Get your DVD player. I think you get them for cheap on Amazon.
Probably, yeah, because I have like a small DVD collection, and then streaming is just becoming more and more cable, and
Yeah. I'm all for physical
yeah,
media. It's a dying age.
yeah.
I'm
Well,
also a
just
bookworm, so I have like 5,000 books in
I
my
have 5,000
possession.
books that but then whenever I actually read them, I'm listening to an audiobook because I drive so much in Los
Same.
Angeles. I need to, yeah,
I need to be enwrapped in a book. Like I can't just listen to music. I have to listen. I have to engage with what I'm reading. So,
yeah.
plugging audiobooks and books. Yay.
This movie was directed by Michael Curtiz and William Keighley. Screenplay by Norman Riley Rain and Seton I. Miller. There was a lot of rewrites because the initial draft had a lot of like medievally Shakespearean style dialogue, and they really modernized the dialogue. And it stars Errol Flynn as Robin Hood, Olivia de Havilland as Maid Marian, Basil Rathbone as Guy of Gisborne, Claude Rains as Prince John, Patrick Knowles as Will Scarlet, Eugene Pallette as Friar Tuck, Alan Hale Sr. as Little John, and he played Little John in the Douglas Fairbanks Robin Hood. And they're like, he's an
Wow.
iconic Little John. We are bringing him back as Little John. We have Melville Cooper as the Sheriff of Nottingham, Ian Hunter
Hmm.
as Richard the Lionheart, Una O'Connor as Bess, Herbert Munden as Much, and Montague Love as Bishop of the Black Cannons. This movie had a budget of 2 million and a box office of 4 million. So it was very expensive for Warner Brothers, but it paid off.
It
Uh,
did.
and it became it surpassed even the Douglas Fairbanks silent 1920s Robin Hood film as like the cultural icon of Robin Hood. Like it filled kind of like it kind of established the blueprint. I feel like every other movie I've watched in this Robin Hood series
Hmm.
has been in dialogue with this movie. So whether that's
Yeah.
Disney's Robin Hood or
Hmm.
Prince of Thieves, Men in Tights,
I've actually never seen Men in Tights. I want to, though. I know it's hilarious.
I just saw it for the first time for this podcast, and even the Taron Egerton one is in conversation with this one. Uh,
Oh.
it doesn't want to be. I think it's embarrassed by the legacy of a movie like this, but maybe it shouldn't be.
Oh.
Uh, and part of this was filmed a lot of it was filmed in Bidwell Park in Chico, California. Shout out to our friends on Fairy Tale Fix in their hashtag hometown. Uh, and the star Errol Flynn, this was kind of part of his like initial career swell. He did a lot of his own stunts. He was a 1930s Tom Cruise, and is a bit of a Hollywood legend. And he frequently collaborated with Olivia de Havilland. They had great chemistry. They worked together in a ton of different movies. But bit of a creep, let's be honest.
Yeah.
He had a mansion full of like secret windows and mirrors, so he could like watch women in the changing room or watch other bedrooms.
Huh.
And then he was accused of statutory rape by two different 15-year-old girls. Uh, the
Lovely.
the public rallied behind him and turned against the girls. There was even an organization founded like Boys for Errol Flynn. And he was acquitted, but when he died, he was with a 17-year-old actress who was like there. So let's be honest, unfortunately, it's giving a bit of a Johnny Depp vibe. Like if an actor's so beloved, people will turn on any woman to support them, even if there's evidence. That's just the like when I read about that organization, I was like, ooh, yeah, this seems familiar. So if it walks like a duck, talks like Flynn Rider Entangled, name partially inspired by the legend of Errol Flynn.
Hmm.
Because these characters, these Hollywood stars kind of become characters in their own right. And in like Flynn is debatably connected to in like Errol Flynn because he could get in with any
Yeah.
woman he wanted. So that's, I do really love his performance in this movie. But I feel like I have to acknowledge, not a nice man. The composer, Eric Wolfgang Korngold, initially agreed to the project, or he initially did not want to be on the project, but he agreed because he wanted to leave Vienna as he feared Nazi annexation of Austria.
Mhm.
And like after he left, that did happen. And he was a Jewish man. He didn't want to be around for that. And I think like this happening as this movie in the context of the 30s and the rise of fascism, and maybe that's why it feels so relevant even today. Uh, there's some really interesting stuff with Maid Marian that we'll definitely get into, and the con what this movie does with the concept of like race in this world, that is a lot to dive into. This film was nominated for 4 Oscars. It lost Best Picture or Best Most Outstanding Production, but won Best Art Direction, Film Editing, and Score. So doing well for itself. Now I have this mug with me that has all the oh no, so I'm gonna okay, I have to put it in front of my face. It has all the kings and queens of England because I just went to London this summer.
Oh, my Lanta, how was that?
As an Irish Catholic, I was expecting to dislike it, but I did really enjoy London. I was like, I love this place. But we're gonna talk a lot about British history today because we've done a lot of
Yay!
episodes on Robin Hood lore as the legend, but this movie is has a lot of historical context or historical events it references. So we're gonna kind of
Mhm.
dive into those and how those events aren't necessarily really connected with the Robin Hood legend at all, but Hollywood has kind of interwoven them, and now in our minds they are. I think Hollywood, even more so than a lot of the fairy tales in Disney, I think Hollywood has really shaped what we associate with Robin Hood.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, because also this series has gone on a lot longer than I intended, and I had to return all the books I got from the library about Robin Hood. They're like, you can't renew them anymore. Got to take them back. Uh, but oh no, my cat. She was up by my feet.
Oh.
Yeah. Um, So Robin Hood, he has a cast of characters that's frequently with him. Little John, Much the Miller's Son, Will Scarlet, Friar Tuck, Alan Adale, Sheriff of Nottingham, Guy Gisborne, Maid Marian, and Prince John and King Richard. So most of that cast is here in this movie. No minstrel Alan Adale. He seems to be kind of combined with Will Scarlet, who's also kind of
Hmm.
a nebulous figure in legend. But in the history of England, so this movie is set in the Crusades. There's references to like the Norman Saxon division and King Richard and Prince John. None of the Robin Hood historically was not set in these particular events.
Hmm.
Um, but it was in Sir Walter Scott's Ivanhoe, which is a novel he wrote about a knight named Ivanhoe, uh, and his feats of daring do. Robin Hood appears in that novel, and there
Hmm.
is a lot of classic stuff of like King Richard's gone, Prince John is in control, and there's abuses, and there's also like the Knights Templar and anti-Semitism and a lot going on in those books. But the Normans and Saxons, that conflict is set up as a central aspect of the Richard and John era. However, that wasn't really in the era of the Plantagenets, which are Richard and John. That wasn't really a central conflict in the way it's presented in that book or in the following movies. But we'll talk about that. So 1066, Battle of Hastings. That's when William the Conqueror, first cousin once removed of Edward the Confessor, who died childless, he claimed
Yeah.
the throne. Yeah. Uh, so the Normans were like Vikings that the French were like, okay, you can move in because if you get here's some land, stop raiding us. And so there are these like Viking French combo, and they came in under William, who had been a bastard, gasp. And they defeated the Anglo-Saxons in battle, and was crowned. He was crowned in London, and they took total control. Now, the thing about these times is if you're a peasant, you're a peasant. It's like the warrior class was fighting these battles. And so to most of these people, it's just kind of like, okay, like they're going to be fighting. Um, So a lot of the no like if there's a big battle like the Battle of Hastings, that meant a lot of the Anglo-Saxon nobility gone. And
Mm,
so they were replaced with Normans and the friends of William the Conqueror. And then
hmm
whenever the Saxons would rebel, they'd squish the rebellion and replace
huh.
those nobility and church leaders with Norman nobility and church leaders. Because the Normans were a little more
Oh,
advanced. They were into this thing called cavalry. And so that was helping them. They built a ton of castles all over England to lord over the people, to lord over the
huh.
Saxons.
That
And the
sounds vaguely familiar.
familiar. Yeah. Tale as old as time. And they were good at building things, the French style. They build big monasteries, big churches, build big castles. And so they were also better at managing finances. There's this book called the Doomsday Book, which shows that they accounted for every pig, every piece of land, every person in every
Huh.
village. And so that administrative ability also like allowed the Normans to have total control.
Hmm.
And we see this in it shaped England as we think of today. So customs like queens, that was kind of a French thing. The Saxons, it was just more like you're the king's wife. They didn't have like a queen. They ended slavery. They weren't into slavery, just serfdom,
Just
uh,
serfdom. That's perfectly
perfectly
fine.
fine. Rabbits, they brought in rabbits. And then French language. So the elites
Huh.
spoke French, and so you see that in modern English. So many of our words come from French,
Yep.
and then specifically, like if it's the word for the animal on your plate, it's going to be a French word. Where if it's the word for the animal in your yard, that's going to be like a more Saxon or Germanic word. So like poultry versus chicken, pork
Uh-huh.
versus pig, like du pork, pig, because some people were seeing these animals as things you took care of, and other people were seeing them as something you ate on your plate. And we see
Ah.
that in our modern language, which is why we have different words for the food and then the animal.
Hmm.
Uh,
I did not know that.
yeah, that's one of my favorite fun facts. Uh, Language is fascinating like that. The 100 year this kind of would lead to the England and France always being kind of connected. The English kings had land in France, but that meant they had to bow to the French king, sort of in that aspect, but they were rival
Hmm.
monarchies, which would eventually lead to the Hundred Years' War, which was a brutal conflict between the French and the English over French control. Joan of Arc had to step in. Joan of Arc got burned.
Hmm.
It's yeah. That's summing up a lot in a little, but we're not totally a history podcast. We're mainly talking about fantasy, but with Robin Hood, it blends. Um, but these two brothers, Richard and John, who have become almost mythological characters, they were part of the Plantagenet dynasty,
Hmm.
which ruled between 100 1154, 1154, and 1485, a period of 331 years, which, if we think of 1066 is when the Normans came in, is a chunk of time after the Norman invasion. So this
Hmm.
wasn't fresh. But still implications. Uh, these were all descendants of a French count, Geoffrey of Anjou. Um, and whose his badge, the plant, led to the Plantagenet name, and that lasted from Henry II to 1499, and the death of the Duke of Warwick, and the rise of the Tudors after the War of the Roses. So this was
Hmm.
like medieval England was all about the Plantagenets, keeping up the Plantagenets. Um,
Keeping up with the plan.
Because
I
they
love
were
what you did there.
messy. They were a messy. I mean, most royal families are, but the amount of mess. I'm gonna try and sum up real quick right now. We of course the Kim of this, the girl boss at the center, is, or maybe she would be, what's what's the mom's name in the
Oh,
Kardashians?
uh,
Um, Not Courtney. Does it not begin with a K?
is it Kristen? No.
Chris, yeah, the mom's
Chris.
Chris.
There we
Yeah.
go. With the K.
Yeah. Yeah,
I
all I can think of is when she's holding the
was like, is it
pig and
Chris?
Kendall is like, "Is that a chicken?" Uh But Eleanor of Aquitaine was a Duchess of Aquitaine in southern France. She was independently wealthy in her own right because her father left her everything and she could inherit it. So she had all that land. She was Queen of France from 1137 to 1152 as the
I
wife
love
of Louis
that.
the Seventh. And then
Okay.
she got that marriage annulled because they didn't have any sons, and the
Hmm.
Pope was willing to budge on that one. Because they're like, he's
Hmm.
like, I guess you are kind of cousins. Um, and this was after a ton of drama. She fought with Bernard of Clairvaux, who founded the Templars. She won the Crusades. She did a lot in her time as Queen of France. But eventually, that marriage was annulled, and she became Queen of England from 1154 to
Hmm.
1189 as the wife of Henry II, the first Plantagenet king. Um, so that money, that Aquitaine money, that funded a lot of what was going on here. And she was queen of two different countries. Uh,
Love that journey for her.
yeah, she went on quite a journey, and she had many children with Henry. And Richard the Lionheart was their third son.
Well.
Yeah. And he wasn't supposed to be the potential king, but he had two older brothers who died, and then it's like, oh,
Oh.
he's
Ew.
the heir. He was good at being a knight. He was a good warrior, and he ruled Aquitaine. But he was not a lot of family loyalty. Uh,
Oh.
he rebelled against his dad at one point with his brothers, and at one
Huh.
point he even sided with the French king against his dad. Because when he was getting promoted up in the line, Richard, to be the heir, he's like,
Uh-huh.
okay, well, let's put John Lackland, because he was the youngest, didn't have his own land. Let's put him in Aquitaine. And Richard's
Hmm.
like, well, you can't take anything that's mine. So then he's like, I'm siding with the French king against you. So he, again, messy family. And he, while good at crusading, I guess, he conquered Cyprus and stuff. But he fought with the other crusaders. They were never able to reclaim Jerusalem, heavy air quotes. And things fell apart. Eventually, they reached a deal with Saladin. But he was captured in Austria on his way home, and they were like, "Oh, you can either be captured by us, or we can give you to the King of France." And he's like, "Not the King of France. Me
Not
and Philip
him.
have drama. We have beef." Uh, so he agrees to be like ransomed in Austria.
Uh-huh.
And the moment he returned to England, he was recrowned and then went back to France to wage war against the King of France.
Oh
So
boy.
he hardly spent any of his life in England. He was a French guy through and through. Um, there's rumors that he was more into men than women. I did
Oh,
read that. Um, Again, and they thought of sexuality so differently back then. It's really hard to
we
like
love a queer icon.
a messy queen. Yeah. Uh, and which there was also, I learned that there was someone who accused Errol Flynn of being bisexual and a Nazi spy. But most of
I can
that,
definitely see him being bisexual. I would not pick him either. Him or the man who played Will Scarlet. I'm sorry, I just had to say it. I
you
had
had
to
to
say
say
it.
it.
I had to say it.
Uh, the most his daughter sued for libel, more for the Nazi part. He was a Nazi anti-American spy, and
Jesus.
yeah,
Why?
and most likely he wasn't. Those claims are pretty unsubstantiated. So he was just a person who would date teenagers. The statutory rapist asshole, not a Nazi asshole. So, that's pick your poison, I guess. But again, back to England.
Yes,
We
back to
have
good old
back good old
England.
England. We have John Lackland, who was the youngest and his dad's favorite, and his brothers would shit on him all the time. And so Richard hated that their dad favored him, which is why got mad when he was like, "Let's give John Aquitaine." But eventually John sided with Richard against his own dad. So who knows what's going on there? And John was made Lord of Ireland.
Hmm.
Gross. Free my people. So he had to promise when Richard went on crusade in March 1190 not to enter England during that time.
Mhm.
He's like, I won't, you can be on crusade, I won't be there. But his nephew, the 3-year-old Arthur, Duke of Brittany, was the only rival for the throne. He was the only heir. And when he was acknowledged as heir, John got mad, broke his oath, returned to England, and he led the opposition to Richard's chancellor, William Longchamp, in this movie. But he was kind of considered a dictator, so I don't think that many people are in Longchamp's corner.
I
Um,
mean, I wouldn't be.
no. Uh, and he sided against Richard with France to keep him in prison. So that's kind of
Mhm.
as we get this classic Robin Hood story of he wants Richard away. And when Richard returned, he was exiled, lost all his lands. But Eleanor, that classic girl boss, comes back and negotiates for John to be put back in succession and have his land returned.
Mhm.
Because Richard didn't have any sons and he was busy fighting the French king. He didn't have any daughters either that I know of.
Oh,
So after Richard dies, John's king. I think Richard dies while fighting with France, and John gets a new wife, a new French wife, gets rid of his old wife. This caused drama with the French because it was like from different rival French families, and they appealed to the French king, and they're like, "John, show up to court." And John's like, "No, I'm not showing up to your
now.
court." Yeah, he's like, "I will not be taking this invitation at this time." And this led to war with England and France. Wow, again. And th
Jeez. So many
so many wars over nothing,
over nothing. Thank
th
you.
things that didn't matter to the everyday people, just things that this warrior upper class was concerned about.
Again, sounds familiar.
Sounds very familiar. And this led to England losing Normandy, which is where they were from, right? The royal
Uh-huh.
family, and most of their French holdings. Normandy, Anjou, Maine, and parts of Poitiers. So this led to John being seen as kind of a loser because he couldn't uh, get back France, but he became a ruthlessly efficient financial administrator. So,
Mm,
ooh, very popular. He taxed revenues, led investigations into the royal forest, increased taxation of the Jews, looked
goodness.
into feudal like tenures, and increasingly exploited his like feudal powers. And this led to him being seen as a tyrant, right?
Mm,
No one likes being overtaxed. And he also had a fight with the Pope over who got to be the next Archbishop of Canterbury, uh, which led to England being put under interdict, which is where like no sacraments can happen. It's like
mm.
the whole country's been excommunicated because of something the king did. And so
Great.
this he stole money from the monks or something at this time. But then also the country was losing money because of this. So not popular. And eventually this was sort of resolved, but it led to the nobility rebelling, the baronial rebellion, which led to the signing of the Magna Carta, which is considered a landmark in Western democracy.
Mm,
It didn't last very long because soon after he appealed to the Pope to get the Magna Carta undone, and this time the next Pope sided with him. And he fought with the barons. He ravaged the north by Scotland, and war lasted until he died. Um, so I wouldn't really stand him. Not a super great guy, uh,
mm.
but
Doesn't sound very nice.
he was the first king of England since the Norman Conquest who could speak English.
Huh.
Yeah.
Interesting.
So he was, despite him losing all that French land and how unpopular he was in many ways, he started a trend of the English monarch being seen as English instead of French. Like
Mm,
now we're gonna speak English, we're gonna live in England. Because before a lot of the monarchs spent a lot of time in France, and this was like their
mhm.
extra little colony. Um, so interesting. So it turns out none of these people are really what like one's noble and good and one's evil and conniving. One's just a conniver, a money conniver, and one's a warmonger. So,
Yeah.
yeah, let me sip from my English monarchy mug. Um,
Now, are you drinking tea or is that coffee?
it's coffee.
Ah,
Yeah. It'd probably be more English if I drank tea, right? But
probably.
yeah. So that's the lore that we got for today. A bit of historical context into who these people were.
Yeah.
But the legend really isn't concerned with the historical reality of the Plantagenets. It's concerned with good king who's away, return of the king kind of aspect. Uh, and that's really stuck with the story of Robin Hood. Almost, yeah, every version I've seen this for this series has ended with the return of Richard, and him setting things to right. And it allows the story to exist in, sorry for using this word, a liminal space between like it's countercultural in that it's like rebel against authority, but it's, oh, this is the wrong authority, and that's why you can rebel, and the right authority is good and just, and when that comes back, everything will be as it should be.
Hmm.
Um, so it allows them to kind of get away with this anti-authorian story because, yeah, no, they're just loyal to what's the correct authority,
Hmm.
which appeals to a very like Anglo-American view of politics and morality. uh, yeah. So the movie,
The movie.
the film, the moving picture. Um, well, so it opens with like a book narration, not a full Disney
I was actually
storybook.
expecting there to be a narration of the book because I'm like, I guess nowadays it's like you have to read for yourself. I'm like, darn it, I thought
Yeah,
we'd
you
get
gotta read
somebody
it.
reading to us, but gotta use your brain.
It's like Snow White. It opens with a book
It
and
is,
they
that's
don't
right.
narrate it. They
They
make you read
don't.
it. They're like, you better be literate.
You better know how to read words.
Yeah, you better not be Jared, 19, never fucking learned how to read. Uh, and we get there, they spent some time on like the setup of this, that like Richard's gone, John's rebelling against Longchamp with Guy of Gisborne. He has his little like posse of cronies, and they're gonna start abusing the people.
Hmm.
They're gonna take power for themselves.
Hmm.
And we see this guy hunting deer and being attacked by Guy of Gisborne.
Hmm.
And he's saved by this guy on a horse in green tights with a bedazzled tunic. His tunic has like it's bedazzled on the edges. It's like
I didn't
lined
know
in like
bedazzlers
shiny.
were available in 1937. I
Yeah, I don't know. It's like glitter fabric or silver sparkly
mean, I love
fabric.
it.
Yeah, and he swoops in and is like, "Hey, if you're gonna bully him, you got to deal with me." And they're like, "You're so annoying. Like, we can't beat you." And they go back to complain to John and have this feast where they like complain about,
But
"Oh,
Dad, he didn't let me take my toy.
yeah." They're just like Robin of Locksley's ruining everything, and he's a
Dude,
Saxon.
he
He's
sucks.
Yeah. They're like, he's a Saxon. He's inciting all the Saxons against the crown, you know. And John is pissed. John is so well. I mean, the casting in this movie is really good. Like everyone really
Yes.
fits this almost like storybook thing where like the sheriff is or like John is so like rich hoity-toity, like well-dressed, can't get himself dirty, like schemer. And Guy of Gisborne is so like menacing. Um, and the sheriff is like a comedic villain. Like he just has like the perfect evil posse. Um, and we get this feast that they're having, um, where they're talking about their plots, and John is trying to get Marion.
Mm-hmm.
to be
Played
into
by the
Gisborne.
amazingly beautiful Olivia de Havilland. Too funny enough, this was the year before she did Gone with the Wind.
And in Gone with the Wind, she's the Ashley's wife, this the
Yep.
sister. Yeah. Um, she what strikes me about her acting and her beauty is like they go full on medieval, like her hair is covered in almost every scene.
I
And
know, and I'm
she's
like,
still
I didn't know that she had
serving.
hair underneath all those collars. I'm like,
Yeah.
whoa,
But
look at
she's
that.
serving in every scene, and her acting is
Oh
so
yes,
her face journeys off the
her
charts. Yeah.
face.
And it's funny because I think people have this idea of like female characters in old movies being very like, oh, and that's like passive, and that she's
Hmm.
very opinionated and active in the
She
plot.
she is, and she at the end, not to spoil, but at the end of the film, she actually goes to Robin Hood's band of men and she asks them to help him. And
Yeah.
it's that's really interesting that we actually see a woman of nobility actually going to her future husband's court of law to ask him, like, hey, can you help him? I don't want him to die.
Yeah, she's and I actually read about this in when I was writing that paper, I went to the library in Boston, and they had like in the public library these old books that you could only read inside the library. You had to like go to a counter, check them out, and read them in this one room.
Oh,
And
wow.
it was comparing this Marion to the one in Prince of Thieves, and said that despite how they're like marketed and portrayed, that this Marion
Hmm.
is a much more active heroine. She's much
Oh,
more involved
is
in the
she usually
plot.
with the other films? Have you noticed that she isn't or is as active as this Marion?
So I felt like in the 90s one, Marion was presented as this girl boss warrior,
Hmm.
and then she wasn't the rest of the movie. And it's not like
What?
she was still well characterized, like everything she's did still made sense
Hmm.
and like was a normal reaction, but it felt like it was just two different characters. Like, and that's very 90s to be like, look, she's a girl boss, but narratively they don't actually update the character that much. And it's very like 30s to be like, oh, look at this pretty lady, and then actually she's very involved in this storyline, and
Hmm.
very strong-willed and opinionated, um, which I appreciate. So that was interesting. I think the most passive Marion is maybe Men in Tights is comedically so, and obviously I would say Disney.
Hmm.
But because that one she kind of disappears from the third act. Uh, but I feel like Marion as a character in folklore exists in this interesting space where she's the Mary Jane, like she's the hero's girlfriend, like that's kind of
She's the Mary Jane.
her one role. So like everything about her can change. Whereas if you look at like a Cinderella or a Snow White, Sleeping Beauty, they have like things that have to happen to them to make them that character, and like a
Hmm.
backstory that is like integral to who they are. And Marion, she's a love interest for Robin Hood. Everything else is negotiable. And I think that's an interesting place.
Hmm.
Yeah. Uh, but this might be my favorite Marion, because he's trying to get her to marry Gisborne, and he's like, oh, that'd be really good, like a Norman alliance, with the royal ward. And she's like, yeah, maybe if I get to know him better. She's like, that's a little fast. She's like, let me think about this. She knows it's like you get the
She knows
vibe.
her self-worth. She's like, I'm not going to marry a man just because you want me to. I need to get to know this guy, know that he's not a creep, or just,
Yeah.
make sure that he's a good guy, not, weird.
And you can tell that she doesn't fully trust John.
Exactly.
They
Do you
plant those
know?
seeds, yeah, where even though she's like, oh, I'm Norman, she's on the Norman agenda, she is kind of like, okay, like John, mm, you know, uh, and so Robin Hood shows up. Right now, he's still Robin of Locksley. Shows up in his bedazzled suit, or his bedazzled tunic and tights, with a dead deer.
Yeah,
Walks in, throws the deer on the table, and is like, "Oh, I'm bringing you meat for your feast.
there. You wanted it?
Here you
Have
go."
at it.
And they're like, "Okay, yeah, have a seat." And they're like, "Ooh, we're gonna sneak attack him." They're very obviously plotting.
Yeah.
And
And he
he's
and he clocks it all. He's like, "Oh, look, they're closing the doors. Look, they're locking all they're
Yeah.
putting it in a formation. Let's see how I can easily get out of here."
So, and he's casually eating, and Marion is like, "Ah, you're so rude. You're nasty." And he's like, I'm just rebelling against the injustice. I'm a loyal to Richard. He left Longchamps in charge. What are you doing, John? Um, and then the moment John's like, "Okay, you're gonna be killed for treason," uh they launch a spear at Robin, and it like slide goes through the chair right next to him,
Uh-huh.
and then he does this like chair flip where he flips the chair back and like lands on his feet.
Because he's a
Iconic.
cat.
He's a cat, and we have this great action sequence that's so fun. I mean, it makes me want to wear tights. I'm like, wow, he's so
Oh,
agile. He can move so fast. Like, I
you
want
know,
to.
Halloween is coming up. You could.
Halloween's coming. I could. Yeah, I've done it before.
Oh,
But he's just, yeah, he's technically how what they wore in medieval times. I learned this is they were like, obviously they weren't like super tight because they didn't have elastic or polyester or anything like that. But they had these leggings, and you would like loop them up into your underwear, and that's how you
hmm.
kept them up.
Huh.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. Uh, so that he's leaping around. I love the sets in this movie. They have these
Oh my
big
gosh.
castle sets. Like the aesthetic is so like high adventure medieval. These like passages that don't really make sense or like go anywhere, like looping around these towers. It's like a toy set.
I
It's so fun as he's just leaping around, leaping above the guards. And he even tricks the guards. He's like, "Oh, there's a traitor on his way. Like, lock the doors after me."
uh-huh.
So he sneaks out, and the guards lock the doors, and then Gisborne is trying to get out. And the sheriff the whole time is like, "Oh, if I could get my hands on him, he'd be gone." And he just stands there and he like
The
won't
sheriff,
move.
like as soon as danger comes, he pulls out his sword, but then he like cowers away. I'm like, wow, you're a real stand-up guy, aren't you?
Yeah. Uh, at one point they're even like trying to beat him in like a crowd, and he slides underneath their feet. And gets away. So I love this action sequence. And he goes out to where Much the Miller's son, who's the guy who was shooting the deer that he kind of
Yep.
adopted into his group, and his boyfriend question mark Will Scarlet are because his so Will Scarlet, I love he always wears something red because so it's Scarlet.
You know,
uh
you have to have an iconic piece to define your character.
Yeah, if my name was Scarlet, yeah, I'd wear red everywhere. And he's just they just hang out all the time. And so he's even more of his
Doing
little
what? Who
who
knows?
knows? He's even more of his buddy than Little John. I found like Little John didn't
Yeah.
do that much in this movie. Um and Will Scarlet was his kind of ride or die. So they escape, and they're like, we're gonna go into Sherwood Forest, we're gonna form the Merry Men. Uh And on their way there, they have to cross this river, and they meet Little John, who's like, "I'm gonna fight you to cross this river." And what is the line? Oh, this line gets me every time. Robin calls him a messy infant, or um let me see if I can find it. I forgot to write it down, but I remember the time I watched this in grad school, and they said that I was like, wait, what? And like froze the screen. Let's see if there's full script because I need to. All right, Control F infant. There's a lusty infant.
Oh, lusty, is it?
Yeah, and I was like, what does that mean? What? Uh, yeah, who knows? If you know what a lusty infant is, sound off in the comments. Let me know.
Sound.
Hashtag lusty infant gang. Uh, so he fights John like he John and Robin fight in quarterstaffs, and John wins, but Robin's just laughing. He's having a good time. He has this big laugh, and they're besties now. There's
Apparently.
Yeah. They're color coded. It's like John wears like brownish yellow, Will Scarlet's in red, just playing a tune. Like they're fighting, and little John is like, "Oh, can you DJ change up the music? Like we need better fighting music." Uh, it's sure, this movie is like we're just here to have fun. Robin's a goofy, fun guy, which is true. I think some Robins have been very serious, and then
Hmm.
others have been very goofy, and this is a
This
goofier one.
one I find very endearing, as I know I mentioned it before we went on the recording side of this thing, but I again I have to reiterate how much I love the wholesome aspect and how equal everyone is to each other. It's like there's no higher up on anyone in this Merry Men gang. It's like everyone has their own equal part to play. There's no hierarchy of any sort, except for Robin, and he's like, that's the ringleader of everything. So,
Yeah, but he rules by charisma.
exactly.
Yeah, and so he's humble. He can be one-upped by someone else.
Hmm.
He is just here to, be friends with like good honest lads,
Good honest.
just boys being boys, out in the woods. Yeah, and so the merry men are going around fighting. They went to the arrow maker and recruited a bunch of guys. They're passing on word like meet at Hangsman's Oak, or Gallows Oak. They're it's going through the town, and they all are like, okay, we got to fight this tyranny because as Saxons, the Normans are taking everything, and you see they're like trying to chain up and enslave free men. They're trying to, assault people's daughters, steal their wine, and burn homes and execute people. And they keep
Ah, again, sounds familiar.
Sounds familiar. Yeah, they're bursting into people's homes and attacking them. And the merry men are showing up with their arrows and they're killing them. They're like, okay, you're gonna execute these people, you're gonna attack these people. I'm shooting you, I'm killing you. And they're like, that's just how it's got to be. Marion even brings it up later, and he's like, well, they had it coming. They were killing people.
Mhm.
It's self-defense. It is still a family, like kind of fantasy movie. So these knights that are doing this are like, ha ha ha, like make them suffer. But as we see from real life, a lot of people in these roles are like that. I think sometimes we humanize evil too much, and it's like, actually, sometimes evil people do
Yeah.
enjoy seeing other people suffer.
Hmm.
They may say that it's that their intentions are whatever, but if you enjoy someone else suffering, like, oof. Uh,
There's
so
something wrong with you, bro. Come
yeah.
on.
So the merry men are they're not fucking around. They're like, you've been fucking around. It's time for you to find out. We're
Wait, we can
shooting
curse on this
you.
podcast?
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So they're fighting, and John is like, we gotta fight Robin Hood. We gotta get him. But they can't catch him. He's too fast. Now he wears a slightly less bedazzled outfit, so he's harder to catch. And we get this scene where we meet Friar Tuck, and he's asleep. eating, and they're like, it's time to fat shame the fuck out of this guy. And I'm like, and then you're like, oh, okay. Uh, but he gives it back, to be fair, whenever they're like, oh, you could lose some weight. He's like, oh, well, you could lose your face. Like Fire Tuck sasses back at them. But like Robin Hood and him are like sword fighting, and he's like, oh, you gotta take me, or he takes his mutton and is like, you gotta
Mm.
take me across the river on piggyback. And is like spanking him with his sword, carrying him across the way,
Okay, kinky.
yeah, and Friar Tuck is like, I didn't sign up to be, in your leather bondage thing. So he knocks him over, and they're sword fighting and getting dunked back and forth in the water. And Robin Hood is like, okay, but like you're funny. We actually have the one of the in the theme music of the podcast. One of the clips we have is of him, Robin Hood, laughing in this scene, and
Oh, stop.
it's like you're funny. You should be our. We're robbers. We need a priest. Can you do that? And he's like, and he's like, there's lots of food and deer and beer. He's like, all right, yeah. Um, but yeah, the merry men are like always fat shaming Friar Tuck, and he always gives it right back to them. But it's like, wow, bullying,
Bully.
bullying. But he's just like, oh
But it's
well.
all in good fun. It's not like they mean it, but you know.
Yeah, I'm like, is it in good fun, or is
Is it?
Friar Tuck just really good at giving them comebacks? Yes. As my grandma used to say, I can lose weight, but you'll always be ugly, which is one of my favorite comebacks. Um, and that's basically what Friar Tuck is doing to all these guys. It's like, well, they're like, oh, you're gonna lose some pounds. He's like, well, you're gonna lose your nose because I'm gonna cut it off. Uh, so they we got the classic Merry Men group just in time for Gisborne and Marion to be coming in with all the raised tax money. That's allegedly, oh, we got a free Richard from Austria. But John's like,
Uh-huh.
I'm not going to use that money for that. I'm going to use that money for me. Uh, so Robin and the Merry Men capture pretty easily
Very
everybody.
easily. You notice how like all the merry men are like wearing Robin's signature green tights? I just like I was watching, I'm like, wow, they sure blend in with the foliage.
Yeah, that tight depot was how it was going out of business due to Norman taxation. They were having a everything must go green tight
Every
sale,
that's
and they're like, all right, let's mass produce, let's buy these, buy these in bulk from Costco. And they get a bunch of vines. They're like hiding in the trees,
like the vines that
camo.
you have in your forest
In
over
my
there.
forest. This is Sherwood Forest right here. So, and they just sneak and surprise all the sheriff and these guards, and there's nothing they can really do about it. So they capture them and take them to a feast.
But
And they,
not before changing the sheriff and guy's outfits to
yeah,
have them more blend in with the foliage by having them look like their own version of peasants.
yeah, they're like, you get to wear these rags.
There, this is your punishment.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it's very like fashion police, like. Because they're wearing all the nice clothes, they're taking all the wealthy stuff, and that what clothing was a big as it is now, especially in the Middle Ages, was a big status thing. Certain colors and
Mhm.
fabrics only the rich could afford, and so it is like, yeah, here's your little loser outfits, and we're doing a feast, and Marion is all just like, I'm not hungry, because Robin's like, oh, sit next to me and eat, and she's like, I'm not hungry, I'm not
I'm making
eating.
enough food. What
And
do you think?
then she sees him eating and she's like, okay, maybe I'll have a little bit. Uh, yeah, these two have
Jump,
great
jump, jump, jump,
chomp chomp
jump.
chomp. Yeah, these two have great chemistry. And she's also watching him eat like, okay, sexy. And she's like, oh yeah, and I'm sure you're stealing all this and you're gonna give it your like you're not going to use it to yourselves. And they're like, yeah, merry men, what does this go to? And they're like, freeing King Richard, you know? So I noticed there was less rob to the rich and give to the poor in this. It's not like, oh, we're giving
Mhm.
it to the poor. They help the poor and they
I
fight
was
to
waiting
defend the
for that.
poor.
I'm like, wait,
Yeah.
isn't this the whole crux of Robin Hood's story that he steals from the rich to give to them?
Which is, as I learned in my research, not an inherent part of Robin Hood. It's not one of the earliest things. It kind of came
Really?
later. And so this one alludes to
Huh.
it because he defends the poor. And
Right.
we
He
see
takes
him,
them in after
yeah,
they've been battered and
unhoused.
wounded and all that
Yeah.
fun stuff.
So, but the money is like, oh, to free Richard. We're Richard
Okay.
loyalists.
Huh.
But
You'd think they
Marion,
would give it to the poor people that they need
yeah,
surgeries and stuff.
yeah. Like, how are you getting this to Austria? Um, but Marion is like, oh wow, like you are really loyal, and he's like, let me show you, because she's like, you've killed like Normans, and he's like, well, yeah, because they're killing everybody.
Yeah.
And
Hello.
look at
With a
these
human.
people, and he takes her through all these people who are refugees essentially. They've had their homes burned, they've been beaten, they've been attacked, all for not being able
Mhm.
to pay these exorbitant taxes. And he's like,
Hmm.
this is what John and his regime is doing. And he remembers everyone's names. He's like, how are you recovering? Do you have enough to eat? And she's like, oh, like you really do care about these people. And she's like, what do you get out of this? Like, you lost your lands, you lost your title, you are in exile. And he's like, well, you don't get it, do you? Like, I do this because it's the right thing to do, not because it's for me. Um, which I think she does get it. I think she's just so surprised because everyone around her is so self-serving.
Hmm.
So she's like, oh, um, and he sends her back, you know, in safety. Gisborne and Sheriff have to run home in their loser clothes. Um, but she gets to be escorted home with her friend or her handmaiden, Bess.
Oh
Uh,
my God, Bess is an icon.
she is a queen.
Mind you, have you seen the film? Sorry to veer off, but have you seen the film The Court Jester with
Yes.
Danny Kaye? That
Yeah.
whole relationship with the maiden, it reminded me of Angela Lansbury and her relationship with her own handmaiden. I'm like, oh, that.
A lot of that movie was inspired by this one.
Which in turn, actually, The Court Jester is kind of like a spoof of kind of like its own take on Robin Hood, which is
Yeah.
really funny.
Uh, so yeah, so Bess is like, so Much the Miller son is all like, oh, like I love this. He's an older guy, he loves this older gal. And
Mm,
he's like, oh, I've never had a
like,
sweetheart. And she's
want to
like,
go on a
never?
date?
I've been married 5 times. And he's not, he's just like,
I got all the rings
ooh,
to prove it.
yeah. And I'm like, go off, Bess. We love this sassy older woman.
We love her. We need more of that.
So shortly after Marion gets back, Robin like sneaks back into the castle and he overhears Marion and Bess talking and she's like, "Oh, when I see him like my my heart goes pitter patter." And Bess is like, "Oh, and you get that tingly feeling?" She's like, "Yeah." And it's like, "Girl, you're in love." And this is where we see her hair, her braids.
Oh my gosh, that
And
hair.
and
How did that
Robin's
fit under all
it's must be warm.
this?
And Robin swoops in. He's like, "Oh, you got the pitter. Your heart's going pitter pat. Like, are
Oh,
you in love with
hello.
me? Because I'm in love with you." Which that
Oh,
surprised me. I thought he would make her admit it first and like do all that, but he was just like, "Oh, are you in love with me? Because I'm in love with you." I'm like, "Wow." He's an emotionally available revolutionary who can climb walls and wears tights. I'm like, "Wow, jackpot."
I need that in my life.
Like climb through my window. And
Exactly.
so she's like, "Ah, you know, we can't be together." He's like, "We can, come with me." And she's like, well, they send Bess away.
Yeah.
And they're like,
Like, girl, you gotta go away because
yeah.
you don't want to see what happens.
And she's like, I can't. I can do better watching out for treason here. Like, I can be your eyes on the inside. So
Mm.
you go out there and because otherwise we can't, but even though we can't be together, and they kiss passionately, and he goes to leave her. Well, first, she won't admit it, and then that she's in love with him. And he's like, okay, I guess I'll just jump off the am I doing this out of order? Did this happen after the tournament? This is before the archery tournament, right?
No, this is, I think that's after, like way after the archery tournament.
Oh,
And
okay.
mind you, that archery tournament, I don't know if you guys, if you would be discussing Brave, but that whole archery tournament reminded me of that
Of
scene
Brave.
from
Yeah.
in Brave, if you've seen it.
Because there's if okay, so if we reorder events, there's
We'll
this
go back.
we'll
Remember
go
first that.
back. So they're like, Robin is doing too much. We got to capture him. We're gonna do a fake archery tournament. And because he's got to win when he
We gotta
hears about
lure him
archery.
in. We gotta suckle him in.
And so he comes in in disguise, beats the captain handily, shoots his arrow right through the archery captain's arrow.
Hmm.
And Marion is all like, "Ooh, Robin," but she's nervous because she realizes it's a trap. She like sees everything, and Gisborne's like, "Oh, do you like this tournament?" He's still trying to flirt with her, and she's like, "Ugh, you're
Go
annoying."
away.
Yeah. Uh, and so Robin, of course, wins, and he goes to accept the golden arrow and the kiss from Marion, and that's when John is like, "Guards, this is Robin Hood, take him away." And he like leaps up onto the dais of the pavilion and is like
Hmm.
punching people, knocking them down. He gets on a horse to ride away, but he's just swarmed, he's overwhelmed, and he's captured and he's going to be executed. And that's where Marion is like, Bess, I know you've been sneaking off with the Miller's son, with Mudge. Like, let me know where you meet them. And she's like, I would never do that. She's like, no, let me know. And then she's like, okay, they're at this Saxon tavern. Here's the address. And Marion goes herself
Love
to,
that. Girl
eh,
boss.
yeah,
Do it.
she goes
Go
her,
by yourself. See what happens.
yeah. And they're like, the merry men, like Will Scarlet, are like, I don't know if we can trust you because you're coming for my man. No, he's like,
Come on, mom.
because you're Norman and you could be a spy. And she's like, would I, a Norman noblewoman, come by myself if I was a
Mm,
spy? Would I put myself at risk?
true.
Um, but she's like, please help him. He's going to be executed in the town square to be made an example of. So she gives them the details they need. And so at the execution, they're all there in hiding. And
Hmm.
Robin is starting to clock them. And so the moment he's going to be hung, arrows shot, executioner killed, he's freed. He jumps on a horse while still tied up and
Yep.
is able to ride off. And Marion's like, yes. And
Yes.
this is then after he escapes and gets back, he shows up to the castle again, and she's
Yep.
like, you're gonna get
It's
captured.
like you just left and now you're coming back.
And he's like, oh no, I'm just here because I love you. And she's like, oh, I don't love you. And then he's like, oh, well, I guess I can like jump down on that guard. Maybe that'll soften the blow. Maybe they'll capture me. I'm just
I
gonna
know there's five guys
fall.
talking. I think I can topple them. That's even safer than.
And she's like, no, no, I do love you. And so he comes back in and they kiss. And that's when she's like, no, I'll stay here and I'll watch for treason. I'm on your
And she does
side.
her own little investigating, and then yeah,
Yeah. And they have this balcony kiss as he's like holding on to the ropes.
very Romeo and Juliet
Very Romeo and Juliet. It gives me Spider-Man kiss vibes. Like when he's upside down and I'm like, this is like a classic cinema
Yes.
kiss. Uh, and so they kiss and their Facebook official. Oh,
Facebook
RIP.
official.
RIP to me for making that reference. And
It's
they,
RIP if you even say MySpace.
I, yeah, right. Um, and so they're official. So he goes off and she's all in love, right? So we sort of did
Uh-huh.
that scene out of order. But now Richard and his besties in their best Technicolor robes show up in this Saxon tavern
Okay,
and
I'm sorry, but John is very queer coded, I
Yes.
feel. Like, I don't know if you clocked that
Yes.
from the very
Yeah.
first get-go. It's like, there's something a little bit like, girl, about you.
Yep. And
Even with that wig.
even with the red wig, yeah. And Richard shows up with his buddies, and they're all in these robes, and they're like, "Oh, what's going on?" Like everyone is talking about how much they love Robin Hood, and the Normans have all the money, and the Saxons are scared. And this Saxon bishop comes in, or the Norman bishop comes in, and they're like, "Oh, that Saxon is." Do you notice he's immediately scared of this bishop?
Hmm.
But he says this idiot supposed to be undercover says sire to Richard, and the bishop like, "Oh, did you notice that, sire?" And then the bishop is like,
Huh?
"Wait."
Liar. Who?
And then he's like, "Oh, yeah, I got my abbey is leaking.
Oh,
Oh,
wait, I gotta
yeah."
go. I gotta feed my cat.
And so they're watching him leave, and so the bishop immediately goes to John and is like, "King Richard's back."
He's alive.
Which means you gotta kill him so then you can be officially king. Well,
Mhm.
that's what John and Gisborne jump to. And the bishop's like, "Oh my, but that's murder." And they're like, "Now is where you draw the line." They're like, "Do you think you get to keep your abbey if Richard finds out what you've been up to?" He's like, "Oh, okay."
Fine.
But this knight was unknighted by Richard. Have him murder Richard and reknight him, and then we're good. And as they're
Yes.
plotting with this grand sweeping tower staircase behind them, they're doing this plot in this like little lounge inside this big hallway with this sweeping staircase. And Marion, in her like
She's like,
cuntiest
maybe
sneak,
if I angle myself against the wall, they won't see me. I'll be incognito.
yeah. So she's doing this like she's serving as she in this beautiful dress going down the stairs, like
Yes, queen.
yeah. She's like, wow, I'm eavesdropping and like swooping away. And
They can see me.
she almost makes it away. It's just her swooshing robes
It's just
around the corner. Just her cunty little dress, her serving outfit, her just sparkly blue and yellow dress. They see the like the tassels, the train, and they're like, "Oh, Marion." And they're like,
oh,
could she have overheard? Is she loyal to Richard?
oh.
And she's up in her tower and is instantly like, I wrote a letter to Robin Hood. Like, Bess, you got to bring it to them. We got to do this. And she hears them Gisborne knocking on the door, and she's like, "Oh, I'm getting ready." And she just takes a little too long to be like, "Wait, that box. Let me slowly walk up and put it in the box." And he barges in, and she's like, "You're barging in on a lady's chamber."
Like, how dare you?
And he's like, "Oh, I gotta check and make sure you're loyal." She's like, "Yeah, I'm really loyal. I didn't hear anything. I don't know what you're talking about." And she keeps glancing at the box that she was caught standing by, and then he opens it and it's like, "Ooh, it seems you wrote a letter." It's like Blue's Clues. We just got a letter. And Guy of Gisborne is like to the jail, straight to jail. You wrote a letter, straight to jail. Um, and Bess is sees her being kidnapped and is very smart. She doesn't come screaming after her. She's like,
Nope.
"I gotta
He's like,
take
wait, I gotta
matters."
tell my boyfriend. And you go
Yeah.
get his pants.
So she gives all that info to Much, and she's like weeping and wailing. They're like, "We need the details. What about Richard?" And she's like, "I don't care about your men and your wars. I need you to get Marion safe." And they're like, "But also Richard." And then he's like, "A little kiss for the way." And then she's like, "I'm stressed." And then she's like,
Boy.
"Fine. Okay, sure." Uh,
Fine, I guess.
and Much get sees the murderer, and they fight, they tussle, and they're fighting in the water.
Mhm.
It's unclear who won. It's a intense fight. Um, and meanwhile, Robin and his men see Richard. He's now wearing black robes in disguise. They're trying to be monks, and they capture Richard, and they're like, "Oh, you have money? You can we'll give
Get
some of
it.
it to the poor, and then you can keep some of it." And he's like, "What's your deal?" He's like, "Yeah, I'm Robin Hood. We're really loyal to Richard." And he's like, "Ah, yeah, sure." And
Surprise.
Mush shows up and is like, we gotta like this guy's trying to murder Richard. We gotta find King Richard. And so Robin is instantly like, you check this town, I check this town, we are gonna check everywhere. And Richard is like, dramatic reveal, it's me. And you can tell by the outfit I'm wearing. uh
Surprise, surprise.
Surprise, surprise. Yeah. The whole gang shows up, they're crusaders, and they're like, oh wow, Richard's back. Great. Um but they're like, but John's gonna crown himself king. And they're like, oh, we'll just surprise the bishop and sneak in that way. And because we got to save Marion, because once
You
he's
got to.
king, he can execute Marion. So Marion's brought before the court, and they're like, we're gonna execute you. And she's like, well, I'm a royal ward. Only the king can do
Like, you
that.
can't do that.
And he's like, I'm gonna be the king.
Mm,
I make my rules. And she's like, this is what really got me. Because they're like, you're a Norman. Like, you should be with this. And she's like, I'm ashamed to be Norman
mm.
because of the injustices being done here to
You
the
go
Saxon
tell him,
people.
girl.
And I'm like, I feel like that's edgy, even in today's standards, to have someone openly be like, I hate my race and what we do. Like, she straight up says that. Like, Norman obviously isn't a race, but it's just very interesting in the context of when this movie was coming out and in the context we're in now, that for her to be like, oh, like what my ethnic group is doing is wrong
Hmm.
and I reject them.
I love that.
Yeah. And it's like she has this moral strength, and this movie, which is still a pretty light, family friendly, like adventure movie, even though it deals with some
But
serious
it
stuff.
really resonates with
Yeah.
what we're dealing with in this crazy ass world.
And I think people will say, oh, we don't want to put politics in media, but there's politics in this, and
Uh-huh.
it doesn't tell you exactly what it's about, but you can see the parallels. And I don't like when things treat me like I'm dumb and I can't make the parallels myself, so they make them too obvious. This doesn't directly parallel anything,
No?
but it uses that context and it says like bold things in that context while still being this like family friendly Robin Hood
Yeah.
storybook adventure with this beautiful aesthetic. It still has Marion being like, I'm proud to be a race traitor because my people are doing terrible things. And, that's not who I want to be. And that this movie has the moral fortitude to do that. And I think a lot of art still does. I just think we as a society right now, or a lot of our governments, want to punish people for having morals, because
Yeah.
they only want you to do what they want you to do. And so
Mm.
they're like, oh, stop putting your politics in entertainment. And it's like, no, it's just morality. Like, at the end of the day, this is a monarchist movie. It's just against people being unjustly enslaved and murdered and
Yep.
assaulted. Um, and she's like, that's wrong, and I'm willing to say it's wrong, that my people are wrong for doing it. So that scene really stuck with me. And she's like, and
Hmm.
I'm willing to die for that. And Robin was willing to die for that and to lose everything for what's right.
Hmm.
And I'm like, maybe we all need a little bit of Robin and Marion in our day to day, because it's
Yeah,
really
we do.
easy to keep going and just living your life and feeling overwhelmed and not knowing what to do about everything.
Hmm.
Um, yeah. But we all can be merry men. And, uh, so she's in prison awaiting this coronation, and they're getting John ready, and they're like, you're gonna be king. The bishop is showing up, but he's behind the Robin and the men are disguised as monks. They got the bishop at knife point. They're like, oh, Friar Tuck, you must be sweating because you're so fat. And he's basically like, and you're gonna be sweating when I murder you. I should have written down more of his comebacks. That's what I'm getting, because they were all so good. And they sneak into the coronation that way. And so, right as John's about to be coronated, the bishop is like, well, what authority do you have
Mm.
to claim yourself king? He's like, by right of succession, my brother's dead. And Richard's like, surprise, surprise, bitch,
Surprise,
I'm not
surprise,
dead.
surprise,
Surprise,
motherfucker, I'm
bitch.
here.
Surprise, bitch, I bet you thought you saw the last of me.
Mm.
Uh, and they're shook. They're like, "Oh, I didn't know you were
Oh my God,
dead."
wait, no, I'm sorry. Lies.
And then Robin and his men are fighting the Normans, and we get
This
this.
whole scene just, I just, it really transported me.
Yeah,
It, it does. And it's like for me, that whole scene kind of, I'm not sure if you guys would discuss it in the future, The Princess Bride. It
yeah.
reminded me of that sort of like sword play. Like counter talking while this whole thing is happening. I'm like, that's really interesting.
Yeah, because we're getting this big fight scene more that's slightly comedic with everybody in the Great Hall and
It
all these shenanigans. But we
and
get
you have
this,
much just like swinging on
yeah, he's
top
just
of
bopping
everyone's head.
people. But Gisborne and Robin have this duel where
They
they're
have
like,
their own like separate thing. I'm like, man, that's kind of sexy.
yeah, yeah. I mean, and a lot of like sword fights and duels from Star Wars to Princess Bride are inspired by this moment. It's like a
Yep,
sometimes when you watch old movies, things can feel like, oh, this is so like in a way like cliche, but you realize you're watching the blueprint that everyone else built.
exactly.
Yeah,
Exactly.
this sword fight is the foundation for so many other duels, and you see
Yep.
that in like the lighting, you see their shadows in these big hallways. Again, I love this castle. It reminds me of like the Fisher Price castle playset. I don't know if you know the one I'm talking about.
Stop it.
Like it's just like big and sweeping, and I feel like that's how you think of castles as a kid, and I love it, and it just gives this fantasy adventure D&D type world that's so bright and colorful and
It,
epic.
yeah. Yes, it is.
And they're even just like they're fighting around the candlesticks, and it's like, oh, do you know any prayers? And he's like,
Like,
oh
yeah,
yeah,
well, I
I'll
have
say
one for
one for
you.
you. Yeah. And they're just zipping around, and it's this intense fight. And eventually, he kills Gisborne. He stabs him.
I was not expecting that, but I'm like, get it,
Yeah.
Robin.
It's like this guy's been having people executed for, because he's trying to
Like, you ever
extort their
know what it feels
land.
like?
Yeah. And then his buddies show up to help him fight the guards so he can
Yep.
swoop down to see Marion's waiting in her cell, and he came for her. Uh Very Taylor Swift love story coded. And then they're it's back
We
at
can
the
talk about the new Taylor Swift album after we record.
and it's time for this big the big finale scene where Richard is
Yes.
back. He's like, John, you're under arrest.
You're a little cunt. That's what you are.
Exactly.
You thought you could rule like this unjustly? How dare you?
And he's like, in this future where Norman or Saxon, we're all Englishmen. So
Exactly.
which
We're
is
all
funny
equal.
because it's kind of John IRL who started the now we're in England and we speak English, even if we're royalty. But in this story, he's like, we're all Englishmen. We're going to be just. Robin, is there anything you want for all your loyal service? And he's
Hmm.
like, can me and all my
Well,
men be parted? And he's like, yeah, sure. But like, everyone's cheering.
what
He's
else?
like, don't you want something else? And Marion's in
Okay,
the
Swan
corner.
Princess.
Yeah, Swan Princess. Yeah, and Marion's in the corner, like,
Girl,
yeah, I
I
think I know what I
want some of
want.
that. I want that sword.
And he's like, oh, yeah,
Oh yeah, that.
your the hand of Marion. And Richard again turns and is like, oh, well, if she consents. And she's like, well, yes.
Well, duh.
I won't, yeah, duh, I don't want anything more. Uh, and even John though was like, "Oh, I won't force you to do it against your will. Like, I need your." So I love that it's just assumed that she has a say in this.
Yeah.
And
You love a
re
consenting queen.
we love a consenting queen, and they unite, and all the men are like
They're all
piling
like
on top of Robin
and
Hood.
then they find them where they're running,
Yeah, he
running away. It's
sneaks out. He
like
sneaks from
very
underneath them,
sneaky,
and they're running
sneaky
away.
snake.
Yeah. And he's like, "Oh, so I assume you take my command to, marry Marion and treat her well or whatever." He's like, "If only I could observe all your orders with such devoted loyalty, like with such passion." And they kiss and run off, and That's The Merry Adventures of Robin Hood. Happily Ever After.
Yay!
The aesthetic of this movie,
Oh my gosh. I
peak,
loved when you were talking about your paper that you meshed this all with Sleeping Beauty and what was the
Knights of the Round Table.
Knights of the Round Table.
Yeah,
Mind you, I'm a big Disney fan, and Sleeping Beauty is one of my top tier, like it's one of my top five favorite films of all time,
yeah,
Disney-wise. And it's just the whole aesthetic, the whole medieval aspect of it, the dark corridors, the you have
yeah.
Maleficent's evil orb and the thing. I'm like, ugh, just I want to live in a castle like that. But I know it's gonna be drafty and cold, and it's not gonna
Yeah.
be all that I would want. But I'm like, I want to have that little getaway to a castle.
Yeah, I mean, I think this old Hollywood medieval aesthetic was so bright and colorful, and I think Sleeping Beauty, being from the 50s and the later half of the
hmm
50s,
Like
is a
it was
little,
on that precipice of 59,
yeah,
going into the 60s,
it
which
was
I
a
think that
little
was like the very
more,
last
yeah, of that
traditional
era.
Disney fairy tale film.
Yeah.
And
And
then
they,
came Mermaid.
yeah. But Sleeping Beauty has this, like more artistic. I'm trying to think of, I'm not as good at by art history, but like not Art Deco, but like this kind of 50s flair, this more stylized,
hmm
modern nuance to its aesthetic. And this one is definitely still very a little more old-timey, like theatrical, big set, big colors, but they're still related. It's just I think Sleeping Beauty is like the next stage of this evolution. And I really want to bring back this aesthetic of just
I do
like
too.
the tights, of course, the tights,
The tights.
but like just the bright colors, everything sparkles, everything's so like these primary colors, which was medieval art, and then these big
hmm
sweeping castles, these practical sets. Um, and that's not how castles looked. Like they were whitewashed, they were small, they had hay on the ground, but this just like you feel like you're in an adventure novel or an adventure video game. Like the just the morals, the right and wrong, standing up for the
hmm
oppressed, just like this kind of like good, evil, heroic. I think it's a great action fantasy,
It
and
is.
I just think,
It is the very blueprint of all fantasy films that are to come
yeah,
down the road.
yeah, it is, and like between the character looks, the aesthetics, and again, just I love this high medieval aesthetic,
hmm
um, and I I think there's something to the morality of these old stories that even though then in some ways it can be dated, again, I think this idea that there's good and evil and what makes you cool is your heroism. I think we went
Yep.
through a big anti-hero age, and I think we're kind of seeing both the reverse of that now and like the some of the rotten fruit of that age.
hmm
And I think this idea that, like I think of Superman and like
Oh my
the release of
God.
Superman and the like being kind is the new punk rock. And like Robin Hood is very much in that vein of he's goofy, he's having fun with his friends. Uh, he's boys will be boysing in the woods, question mark.
Boys, we
But he cares about justice, he cares about what's right, he cares about defending people. And uh and he's about fighting racism and classism, and I think that like morality and the way that morals and what's right doesn't change with the times. Like we can grow and we can evolve and we can understand, but at the end of the day, like it's about how we treat each other. And I think
hmm
that aspect of like what a hero is coming back, and I just really enjoyed seeing it in this movie because I think sometimes as we've struggled with Robin Hood as society's moved on because
hmm
he's so old-fashioned, and we think we struggle with a lot of characters that way.
Yep.
He reminds me a lot. You bring up Sleeping Beauty of Sleeping Beauty or Snow White as characters. I think this it's just we have a different way that we structure movies now,
hmm
but he is kind of reactive. And this will, I guess, lead into like I usually ask, do we root for our protagonist? And that's not always the case in older movies. If you think of like Dorothy, right? She's very like she has a goal that she's going towards. But Robin Hood's goal is kind of to wait out John. And so
Yeah.
the villains push a lot of the action. A lot of what Robin does is in response to what
Hmm.
the villains are doing, which is very similar to like the narrative structures of like some of the older Disney movies.
Yeah.
And I think older stories in general, it's like because good people are just living their life and then evil people are trying to ruin their vibe. So the evil
Hmm.
characters push the story forward, which is why sometimes they can be really fun to connect with and engage with
Yep.
characters like Maleficent because they have a goal that they're going after. Um,
Hmm.
so he is interesting because he's this action hero, but he is in a way similar to like a Sleeping Beauty or Snow White, where he's very
Yeah.
reactive to the events around him. Uh, which is just an interesting gender thing and a storytelling thing to unpack. But as our protagonist, I feel like I do really root for him and really like him. Would you agree?
I agree wholeheartedly.
And I think I liked this Marion a lot, and I think I liked their couple
Yeah.
dynamic. There's a reason I would say this is probably my favorite Robin Hood film. I think I just these two characters are really
I need to do
likable.
more research on Robin Hood. I've never actually seen the Disney version. I'm a big Disney fan, but I've never actually seen the Disney version, nor have I seen any other Robin Hood film. I guess Robin Hood for me never like appealed to me growing up as a kid. So,
Yeah,
but watching this now, it's kind of like, okay, this is my Superman era. Because once I realized that they're going to make a new Superman, I immediately needed to like watch from the very beginning. So I watched from the Christopher Reeve version, and then I did the Superman Returns film, and then I
yeah,
did Man of Steel. And I'm like, wow, this is, you were just talking about it, that this is our version of Superman with Robin Hood.
yeah,
So it's like you have all of the, you have to start with the beginning to get to where you are now. So I think when we're discussing this film, it's like this is the blueprint of what's to come. Some good, some bad,
yeah.
but you know,
Yeah, yeah, I think it is. I love on this podcast when we do these series and we see how these characters
evolve
evolve.
and
Yeah,
change. Mhm. Especially with Disney characters, like I know you've done Cinderella and Snow White.
yeah.
I was a little bit disappointed that you didn't really capture, that you didn't review the Miranda Richardson version of Snow White, if you've ever seen that version back in 90,
Oh,
no, 2000. It was 2001 that it came out. It was Hallmark.
oh,
Hallmark came out with that one.
oh. Yeah, I didn't know about that one.
Oh my God. You gotta
But
do your research.
yeah, I know there's so many Snow Whites.
I know.
Um, but yeah, how
There's so
characters
many
like
Robin Hoods. Let's get back to Robin Hood because we're
yeah,
not talking about Snow.
these characters really do evolve.
They do.
And I think it's cool to see the ways they go like flip and reverse and what traits we pick up and how they reflect our values and what we can learn from older versions and what we can aspire to in newer versions.
Hmm.
Yeah, I think our antagonists in this one, I think my favorite sheriff is still Alan Rickman in Prince of
Oh,
Thieves.
you can never beat Alan Rickman in
Yeah,
any fucking thing he does.
um, but the these are good like good villains. Like this is a good Gisborne, this is a good John, this is a good sheriff. Again, like classic kind of trio of villains.
Hmm.
And a great story about like fighting for justice.
Yep.
Um, so our big final question is a two-parter.
Yeah.
Um, do you one first is was that your fantasy? Like, is this well, it's was that your fantasy? It's a two-parter. So it's like, did you like the movie, and is this an adventure you'd want to live out?
Oh, fuck yes.
To both?
To both. Hello.
Yeah. Yeah, I would too. I want to, fight evil, live in the forest in my tights. I do love when Will Scarlet is like, ugh, we're sleeping in the woods and he's with owls screeching in my face. And he's like, oh, there are nightingales. Robin's like, it's beautiful. It's a beautiful time. And I'm like, the girls are fighting. The boyfriends are going through a rough patch because Will wasn't about sleeping outside.
I think
Uh,
Will is more attuned to like live sleeping in five-star hotels. I'm like,
Yeah,
okay,
that
that's
always
what you want.
happens. There's a camper and a five-star hoteler, and then they date each other. Um,
That'll be me. I'll be like, get me to a hotel. I don't want to sleep in grass where there's
Yeah.
shit on the floor.
But so, yeah, I want to live out the adventure and such a great movie. Such a like a classic Hollywood adventure.
It is.
Yeah.
It is. And I just want to say again, thank you for having me on, and hopefully I can come on for another episode down the road because I really
Yeah.
loved your vibe. And hopefully when Hannah gets back from her little hiatus, I can finally meet her and we can
Yes.
have like a fun group thing going on.
Hopefully we can free her from Nottingham.
Yes.
And but before we go, do you wanna plug where we can find that classic
Yes.
old gay cinema?
So yes, the podcast my old that 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 old gay classic cinema. You could find it on YouTube, Spotify, Apple, iHeartRadio, which I actually did that on a fluke. I didn't think that they would actually accept it, and it's there. It's also on. We also have TikTok and Instagram as well, so feel free to follow that. And we're also partnering. We partnered with the Avatar Boiler Room, which is another a podcast that I recommend you to listen to if you like academic scholarly discussions on queer literature and many different topics. They also have a queer academia podcast as well,
Ooh,
if you love. Actually, no, it's true crime. True crime.
true
So if you
crime.
love true crime and academia, then they're partnered together. So yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
So check out those shows. We'll link them down below. You can find Not My Fantasy podcast wherever you get your podcast and on YouTube. You can find us on Instagram and TikTok at Not My Fantasy Pod. Um, and please remember to smash the like button, hit subscribe, get those ringing bells of the Black Cannons Abbey, hit that bell notification. Um, so you know when King Richard returns and we upload a new episode and when we freed Hannah from Nottingham. And yeah, and comment below with if you were to start your own tights wearing gang in the woods, what color tights would you pick? So if green, Robin Hood's picked green, that's his
ooh,
color. What is your color? You can think about
huh.
it, comment below. And Chris, thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you for having me again. I can't, if you know, you're more than welcome to come on our podcast
Of
as well. And I'd
course.
really love to come back to this podcast. This was so much fun. Thank you for having me on.
Again, thank you for coming. I had a great time. I'm glad you did too. And
I, yeah.
check out his podcast to hear a lot more about queer cinema and classic Hollywood. And I don't, I'm trying to think of what order I'm recording two episodes of the same day. I'm like, I don't know what order I'm gonna release them. But so tune in next time for either our Halloween special or potentially maybe I'll have to edit this based on when it's released, or potentially I'm going to release this after Halloween, the Halloween special, and maybe it'll be something related to something else. But tune in next time for an episode. Everyone, fantasy, stay golden, stay merry, stay merry and
Stay
bright
married.
and
I love
gay.
that.
Yeah, stay merry, men and women and non-binary pals. Bye.